What's up guys, welcome to another video at Movement Mechanics, and today we're going to talk about an interesting but an important topic, which is dehydration. We are going to understand various subtopics in this video, such as what is dehydration, how do you cure dehydration, what are the ill effects on performance when we talk about dehydration, and etc. So let's dive deep inside this topic and understand some movement mechanics. Roughly around 75% of the human body is made with the help of water. Now what circulates in the human body is blood, and blood is also made out of water. So when we talk about dehydration, we are talking about excessive water loss in the human body. Now if the body is hydrated properly, what is going to happen? Firstly, your blood plasma volume is maintained very well. That means the blood volume in the human body is maintained thoroughly. Secondly, your body is going to get cooled off. Whenever you are doing any kind of physical activity, you sweat out. Now this sweat is basically the blood or the water pushing the heat out of the body to the largest organ, which is your skin, in the form of sweat. So if you are not going to have water adequately, then that sweat production is reduced. Thirdly, it helps in transportation of nutrients to the necessary organs or the muscles. Then it also helps in excretion of waste materials. For example, your urine is made out of water, and if you are not going to have water adequately, then urine excretion is not going to happen in the human body. There are other factors which you should also consider when we talk about hydration, is basically your performance factor, your day-to-day life factor, etc. We are going to understand all of these factors in a minute in this video. Just to set the tone of this video, water is extremely important. 75% of the human body is made out of water, and water serves as various purposes when we talk about the performance of the human body in general. Let's understand some of the hazardous factors if you are not hydrated properly, and when it comes to your performance as well. Firstly, what happens when you are not hydrating properly is you are going to increase your blood pressure. Secondly, your cardiac output as well as stroke volume is going to get reduced. Now if you are going to increase your blood pressure as well as reduce cardiac output and your stroke volume, you are very close to the risk of heart attack. That means if you are not going to hydrate properly, heart attacks are very prone, especially in humid and hot climates. Thirdly, you are going to suffer from dizziness, you are going to lack concentration, and also there is not going to be any sweat in the human body. That means your body temperature is going to get raised up. Also, just a minor dehydration or minor loss of water in the human body can impair performance by roughly around 2 to 5%. Now, a 2 to 5% of impairment in performance is massive when we talk about international standards. Let's talk about the sport of cricket. Now, when the ball goes up and you want to catch the ball, you need immense amount of concentration, you need immense amount of focus as well. Now, let's say you are not hydrated properly, so your concentration is impaired, your focus is impaired, and also you are going to have high heartbeat because of high blood pressure. Now, at that time, you are not going to be able to catch the ball. Now, this impairment can be just 2% or just 1% as well. But that 1% impairment also can cost you a game. Hence, hydration becomes extremely critical when we talk about sports or even in life in general as well. Now, let's understand how we can hydrate ourselves and what are the basic guidelines which we can use when we talk about hydration. Before we move on in this video, I wanted you guys to have an life example which I personally face currently. One of my friends called me up and said that he's running like 1 or 2 kilometers each and every day, but his sweat output has reduced drastically. He's not sweating at all. Now 1 or 2 kilometers may be a very low volume for some of the guys, but for him it was very high volume. The reason was he's not that very fit. He's a bit bulky in nature. So 1 or 2 kilometers for him is very high volume, and he should really sweat it out when he's going to do that 1 or 2 kilometer runs. Of course, before giving him any suggestion, I examined him. I asked him some questions. For example, what is your intensity? What was the, are you running or are you jogging or are you walking? And if you are walking, then what is the intensity of those walk? Or if you are jogging, what is the intensity of those jogs as well? He said that he's running at a decent pace. He's covering that particular duration in like 5 to 6 minutes. Now for a sedentary individual, 5 to 6 minutes covering 1 kilometer in 5 minutes is quite a good amount of time. Hence the intensity was up to the mark. But what came out very interesting in his scenario was his water intake. When I questioned regarding his water intake, he said that he's drinking only 1.5 liters of water per day, or maximum 2 liters of water per day. If someone is drinking like 2 liters water per day, that is not adequate at all. Now he was suffering from high blood pressure, he was suffering from a bit of high heartbeats as well, and also his sleep pattern was not good. Now all these factors were contributing towards low water intake, and also his sweat output was reduced because of this factor itself. That is my findings. Of course there would be other factors, but as for me, sweat output was reduced because of this low water intake. As the body temperature was increasing and there was no water in the body to dissipate that body temperature in the form of sweat, his sweat output was reduced drastically. Before we understand hydration and the various guidelines for your hydration status, may it be during training, post-training, pre-training, and hydration in general for generic population, we need to understand something called as electrolytes. Now what are electrolytes? Electrolytes are basically combination of minerals, which is sodium, potassium, and bit amount of calcium and magnesium. Now when you are going to sweat, you are going to sweat a lot of electrolytes and not just plain water. Now if you just taste your sweat, sometimes it is going to be salty in nature. That is because of sodium in the sweat. So most of your sweat content is made from sodium and bit of potassium, calcium, and magnesium as well. So if you are going to sweat a lot, that means the sodium levels in your human body are going to drop, and if you want to maintain those sodium levels, then you need to have sodium or electrolytes in your hydration plan as well. Now there is something called as hypotremia, that means very low levels of sodium in the human body. Now if you want to avoid that, you need to design your hydration plans properly so that you don't suffer from hypotremia, or you don't lose too much of electrolytes, as well as you don't lose too much of water as well. So what could be the basic guidelines for athletes when we talk about athletic performance? If you are weighing roughly around 40 to 60 kgs, then you should drink 150 to 175 ml or even 200 ml of water per 20 minutes. And if you are weighing anything above 60 kgs, then that water intake should go from 250 ml to 275 ml per 20 minutes. During intense training sessions and in humid conditions and hot conditions, plain water is not just going to be the game saver. You have to have electrolytes as well. So what should be the electrolyte guidelines? You should have roughly around 500 to 700 mg, that is milligram, of sodium chloride oriented sports drink, and roughly around 100 to 200 milligram of potassium chloride sports drink in your hydration plan as well. So why this is necessary is because, as I've mentioned previously as well, that because of excessive sweating, you are going to lose sodium, you are going to lose potassium, you are going to lose calcium, and in order to fulfill the demands of these minerals, you need to have sports drinks or drinks which contain the mentioned amount of these particular electrolytes. So these were the guidelines during the training, but what about post-training, which is more critical than during the training? So once you complete your training, you probably may be in slightly dehydrated state because of excessive amount of sweat loss, and of course you don't get the chance to drink water all the time. So if your training sessions are within a span of 12 hours, you need to approach hydration aggressively. That means you need to have 1.5 liters of water per kilogram lost in the human body. But what happens pre-training is also important. You need to hydrate pre-training as well, so that you don't impair your performance during your training sessions. So there should be a hydration plan made properly for pre-training. Again, you need to adequately fulfill the demands of the entire. As an athlete, you should have 5 to 8 liters of water per day. Now 5 liters is for the cooler conditions, cooler environments, and 8 liters is for the hotter and humid conditions. The environment is one of the most crucial factors which affects your hydration status. So you need to complete the quota of 5 to 8 liters based on your environment and hydration status, etc. So you need to manage your pre-training hydration status as well. You cannot have your water intake of 2.5 liters or 3 liters just half an hour before your training. You are going to urinate during your training sessions a lot, and that means you are going to lose a lot of water. At the same time, you are going to lose a lot of sodium as well. So you need to plan that as well. So the guideline for this is you should properly hydrate yourself and urinate properly roughly around 2.5 hours before your training session. Of course, you can sip some amount of water in between the duration, which is not going to cause too much urination, but you cannot have excessive amount of water just before your training session or just before your competition. Okay, these were the guidelines for athletes who want to improve their performance. But what about general population? Now, I'm not going to give you a very thorough base on general population because that is not this video is oriented for, but I just want to suggest a simple guideline, which is 4 to 5 liters for males and 3.5 to 4.5 liters for females per day. Now this amount is generic for both hotter and cooler conditions, so that the risk of dehydration is reduced in generic population. Now these guidelines are not only for sedentary people but also for active people. Of course, active people may increase their water intake to 6 liters as well in terms of males, and 5.5 or even 6 liters in terms of females as well, because they are active, they are going to sweat a lot, and when you sweat a lot, you are in need of water as well. So these guidelines can vary for generic populations as well as athletic populations, but that athletic population guidelines are much more individualistic. Now before we wrap up this video, I wanted to share a concept which is known as sweat rate. Now what is sweat rate? Is basically your pre-exercise body weight minus your post-exercise body weight plus the fluid intake you have taken during the training session and minus the urine output. Now when you calculate all of these numbers, you are going to get a final number, and that is the water intake you should have post your training sessions. Now of course, everyone doesn't have facilities or the equipment needed to calculate the sweat rate accurately. So what can be a basic idea to calculate how much water you should drink is simply take your pre-exercise weight and take your post-exercise weight and drink the amount of water which you have lost, may it be 1.5 liter per kilogram lost or 1 liter per kilogram lost. Also, you have to be very careful that you don't lose more than 2 kgs of weight during your training sessions. If you are losing more than 2 kgs of weight during your training sessions, that means you have lost a lot of water and you are in dehydrated state. So you need to hydrate your body properly during your training sessions so that you don't have excessive loss of water and impair your performance, and also be at a risk of any severe injury or be at a risk of heart attack or increased blood pressure or dizziness, etc. So guys, if you have loved this video, make sure you hit the like, the share, the subscribe, as well as the notification bell icon so that you never miss a video whenever I am uploading a new one. Also, if you have got any doubts and comments regarding this video or any other video suggestions which you want to cover in the future, make sure you drop that in the comment section. Till then, see you in the next one.